Well, you mentioned too, when the amount of like the float outstanding, right? There's less shares, there's less companies out there. Let's talk about the proliferation of indexing, right? It's caught on, it's cheap to do, zero cost, zero commission now. What is the impact of that in the allocation of capital across an equity market? What does that do? Does it distort things? Is it just giving people better assets?
Well, indexation in equities is definitionally momentum investing. You're buying more and more and more of the stocks that are doing better and better and better. And that's great when you have the FANGs that are leading the train and they are getting bigger and bigger. But obviously that has an unwind situation as well. But when it comes to indexing, it's remarkable how the pendulum swings. In the mid-1990s, there was tremendous demand for bond indexation. The whole term core bond investing was a euphemism for indexing. It was basically incredibly tight guidelines, and therefore you were going to get something very close to an index return. And the reason it was popular was because it worked. I mean, if you were sitting on a pension committee, you would go in there and say, oh God, now we got to talk about this bond part of our portfolio, which is as dry as dust. And they go like, okay, well, the 1-year return is 8%, the 3-year return is 8%, the 5-year return is 8%, our actual return is 8%. Any questions? Good, let's go talk about some private equity or something interesting. That's what, I was an active manager at the time, and it was brutally difficult to get people to care. Now, people want indexation in stocks. Back in the 1990s, they wanted active management in stocks. And now it's exactly the opposite, that there's a great fondness for equity indexation, particularly just the SPYs, right? And yet, nobody really wants bond indexation. Or why should they? I mean, you look at the bond index and you're saying, hey, I've got a yield of 2.5%. I've got interest rate risk that's about, 3 times that, or 2.5 times that. I mean, how is this going to work for me? My actual rate is now 7.25, 7.25%, and this is a guaranteed hole in what I'm doing. And so what's become popular on the bond side more recently, it's a little less than it was 3 years ago, is active management on steroids. Unconstrained bonds, no guidelines whatsoever, negative duration, very, very long duration, shorting. Just don't even tell me what you're doing, because if you tell me, I probably won't like what I'm seeing. So unconstrained is active management on steroids. At the same time, there's this overwhelming movement in equities towards indexation because, just like in the 90s the bonds worked, it's working. Right. I mean, how do you outperform a stock index as an active manager when you have 3% cash and the market goes up 30%? Well, there goes 100 basis points right there.